Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. When you go live, you have technical difficulties at times, so we experience some of that. Apologies from the Defion Productions team. We're going to recap right from the top. This is episode number 80 of the Defion Productions podcast. I'm your host, Don, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin. We are going to talk about the markets today, markets of crypto, markets of Bitcoin, and probably spend a lot of time talking about traditional markets because that's really where a lot of the action has been. It was pretty much a very wild week in both the Bitcoin space as well as the TradFi space. We saw extreme gyrations in both directions in terms of whatever asset of choice that you had, whether it was a crypto coin or a traditional market asset, due to the tariffs that we're going to talk about. Let's jump into the chart real quick. For those of you that didn't get to see it when we were live before, we got Bitcoin sitting a little bit under 81,000 currently. Ethereum sitting at 1555, XRP right under $2, Solana at 113.53. The total market cap of crypto is 2.58 trillion. Fear Greed Index at 25. And I was pointing out right before we went off from the live stream before, the 7-day for Bitcoin is only down about 0.5%, which is kind of crazy because if you look all the way to the right of the price action of the chart, you can see where we were at a week ago, and then in the middle of the week, we dropped severely down. I believe we wicked down into the 75s, made a move back up, went back down, and then after yesterday, Trump's announcement, we went back up to into the 80s, and as we are sitting at around 81,000 right now. Big story for crypto, in my opinion, is how poorly that Ethereum continues to perform. In the last 7 days, it's down 11.5%. I don't know what to say about that coin. It's a dead coin walking, dead chain walking, as I've been saying on this podcast for quite some time now. Traditional markets currently, after yesterday's big day when Trump announced that the tariffs were going to be paused on every country except China, and he was going to raise the tariffs from 104% to 125% on China, the Dow and the S&P and the NASDAQ ripped, getting some of the best gains we've ever seen over a one-day stretch ever. Today, we are down. Looks like the Dow is down 2.44%. S&P is down 2.93%, and the NASDAQ is down 3.52% as we film at 11:08 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the volatility remains in the markets. Lot to really talk about, lot to really cover, why these things happened. Liberation Day occurred about a day or two after we filmed last week's podcast. Liberation Day was Trump holding up those signs talking about the tariffs that he was going to be imposing on 60 plus different countries, what they called reciprocal tariffs. And the markets did not react well to that. And we dropped Thursday, we dropped Friday, we dropped Monday, and we dropped Tuesday. Actually, Tuesday, we I think we ended down in two of the indices and slightly flat in one of the others. Yesterday, we were down a couple of percentage points before Trump made his announcement, and Trump decided that he was going to pause, like I said, and markets ripped in the opposite direction. The main issue that we were trying to avoid was the 10-year Treasury yield going parabolic, which it was starting to do. The 10-year Treasury yield is the measuring stick that I believe, that many economists believe, Trump was trying to lower so he could force the Fed to lower interest rates and then, in effect, to lower the amount that we're going to pay on our debt that we owe. Good plan, but the plan wasn't working as constructed, which in my opinion and many other people's opinion is why Trump decided to pause for 90 days his Liberation Day idea of tariffing everybody at the same time and focusing solely on China. China is not backing down. We're not backing down. So it's a standoff between two big economies, and that's kind of where we're at now. But at least we're only fighting one trade war, and we're not fighting 60 plus trade wars simultaneously. But the markets are still volatile, and there's a lot of misinformation going around that I want to talk about on this podcast that has left me disappointed, to say the least, in people that I would normally think had pretty good heads on their shoulders and could look at things logically and make assumptions or make decisions based on the information that they had in front of them, and not just look at it through partisan eyes and just think that Trump is the best thing since sliced bread and every decision he makes is correct and he can never make the wrong one, which there isn't a human on the planet that has those qualities. So I don't know why we're assessing those to Trump. So let's start right at the beginning and talk about the tariffs themselves. Let's start with China. So China, who's going to be continuing to be our trade adversary for the time being. And this tweet was made when they faced 104%. It's actually higher. It's at 125% currently. There were no last-minute interventions. As of today, every iPhone 16, PlayStation 5, Switch 2, ThinkPad laptop, HP desktop, TCL TV, any consumer tech product made in China is now hit, and it's actually with 125, not 104, tariff at the U.S. border. The full weight of Trump's trade war is here. Yesterday, as this was all happening in real time, got some clarification. Anything that was in the water or in the air already was going to be subject to the regular tariff negotiations that they had before. It was anything that was left China's soil or after he made the announcement of the 104 and the 125 are going to be subject to those tariffs. So there's going to be a lot of scrambling by companies, businesses, and organizations to try to reflect in their prices these new tariffs that they're going to have to pay, and it's going to have ripple effects. And the amount of misunderstanding of how economies work. We covered it last week. We covered it the week before. We talked about trade deficits. We talked about how trade deficits are a necessary function of a debt-based economy that houses the world reserve currency, and that there isn't going to be a world where we have a trade surplus across the planet. Now, can we negotiate better deals and lower the trade deficit from where it's at? Of course, but we're never going to be in an economy where the United States has a trade surplus. We talked last week, I believe, about the last time having a trade surplus was during the Great Depression, which we all know how that worked out. So trade deficits are a normal, healthy function of how we've constructed our economy. Lots of back and forth this week on social media with the MAGA movement, the MAGA people who are trying to now become economists and tell people how things should be and how things work and how the economy should be without really understanding how all these things work behind the scenes. There was a lot of talk late last week and early this week about how satisfied, I guess would be the word I could use, or comfortable the people were with breaking the economy and letting things just crumble and then building up from the bottom. And then those same people were celebrating yesterday when the economy turned around and we saw double-digit gains in certain indexes and how Trump is a genius. So the talking out of both sides of their mouth, the number one, not understanding how markets work and economies work and how the debt-based system works is number one. Number two, thinking that fighting a trade war against 60, 70 countries at the same time is a good idea. And then the fact that yesterday, I don't know how you can call it any other way, but Trump blinked. He acquiesced, which I think is a good thing. I'm not saying that like it's a derogatory thing. I think Trump was getting advice from his advisors, and he took that advice, which is what you should do when you have a cabinet and you rely on those people for advice. So he took their advice, and the goal of getting the tenure to come down was not working, and fighting all those trade wars at the same time was having debilitating effects to the economy and the bond markets. And they decided to take a breather, reassess, continue to go hard against China, which is what they're still doing, but to not go so hard against all of the other nations and to pause that for 90 days and negotiate, which I think is a smart move. But to call it anything but Trump backing off, or whatever you want to say, backing off, acquiescing, blinking, whatever verbiage you want to use, like to say it's not that and to spin it into like art of the deal or this is like 4D chess is like retarded. And I apologize to anybody that's offended by that word, but that's just what it is. Like, it's not that. I have a video that I'll play really quick that was let me. I'm going to play this video. This video was in the middle of him having a press conference where the markets were ripping after he was explaining why he changed his mind and paused. So I want you to listen to his words, not my words. Listen to Trump's words of what he said while the market is in the middle of ripping yesterday to highs on a one-day span that we haven't seen since 2008. So take a listen.
Bond markets that persuaded you to reverse course?
I was watching the bond market. The bond market is very tricky. I was watching it, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful. The bond market right now is beautiful. But yeah, I saw last night where people were getting a little queasy. I think everything had. Well, the big move wasn't what I did today. The big move was what I did on Liberation Day. We had Liberation Day in America. We're liberated from all of the horrible deals that were made, all of the horrible trade deals that were made. And I was helped by people just like this, senator, congressman, and friends, right? And we had great help in the Senate. Our Republican senators have been amazing. They stood tall. And likewise in the House. And John thinks it does.
So, in Trump's own words, okay, I want you to see the context of when this happened and what he said. This is not my words. This is not me putting words in Trump's mouth. This is Trump speaking and telling you what he was thinking and what he was doing. He was being interviewed by reporters after he made the decision to pause. And if you look in the corner, you can see the markets are green and they're ripping. So they're asking him, why did you make the decision to pause? What's the first thing that he says? I was looking at the bond markets last night and people were getting queasy. Well, what was he doing last night? He's telling us he's fielding calls from 75 different nations. So if you're fielding calls from 75 different nations, which we can't verify, that's just him saying that. Who knows? I'm sure he was getting calls, but was he getting them from 75 different nations? Nobody can verify that. But what he definitely was doing was he was surrounded by his advisors and cabinet members, and people were getting queasy. Yes, people within his cabinet were probably telling him, President Trump, this is not working. We need to make a better move. We have to do something or we're going to break the bond markets. Stocks are going to crash. We're going to put things into a recession. Powell's not doing anything. He's not lowering rates. We need to do something. Those are the people that were getting queasy. And again, I give Trump credit. It sounds like I'm talking shit, but I'm actually giving him credit. He listened to his advisors who were giving him the advice, who were queasy about the bond markets, and he made the smart decision to pause the tariffs on all the other countries that were not and are not as important as China, and he's still going at China. Like, he didn't pause, he didn't blink with China. Like, he still has the 125% tariffs, and he's still going hard on China. So it's not a full on, we're just like, I quit and throw up the white flag. What he did was, Liberation Day was this big to-do about going hard against the entire world, and markets reacted violently to that. And every economist was like, what are you doing? That's not going to work. You're going to send the economy into a recession. We're going to go into a tailspin. Thursdays we saw that. Friday we saw that. Monday we saw that. Tuesday we saw that. And until he made the decision yesterday, we were seeing it yesterday. And once he made the decision to say, I'm not going to do that now, I'm only going after one and I'm not going after 60 or 70, then the markets took a breather and said, that's great. Let's go back to all the good times that we were having prior to all this. And even still, I want to be clear, even after the markets ripped yesterday and we saw the best day since 2008, most indexes were still in correction territory. And as of right now, with where the markets look being down, where are we at here? We are down. Yeah, so we're actually, every indice is currently back in correction territory. So the markets are still in a correction. The NASDAQ was down 11% before today. So the NASDAQ is actually getting close to bear market territory again. Bear market territory is 20% down from the all-time highs. It's down about 14. The Dow is down around 10. The S&P is down a little bit more than 10. So everything is in correction territory still. So the markets are still in correction territory. So he hasn't put us back into a bull market. He hasn't put us back into like great times. And even the wording that he used saying that the bond markets look beautiful, like, they don't look beautiful. What's beautiful is that they stopped ripping. The beautiful part is it was going over 4.5% and it went back into the 4.3s. Mortgage rates yesterday morning before he made this decision, had made one of their biggest one-day moves in a couple of years. It was past 7% again. So anybody going out looking for a mortgage, we're going to have to be faced with perfect credit, 7% mortgage rates. That's not a good thing either. You don't want mortgage rates going in the other direction. So President Trump, in his own words, told you what he was thinking. It's not a libtard or a panikin saying, "Oh, you're making things up." It's like, no, Trump literally told you in his own words that he was getting good advice, and he took it, which is what you want your president to do. I don't know why that's a bad thing. I don't know why that's anybody talking junk about President Trump or being a liberal or whatever wording or ridiculous nonsense that some MAGA person is going to try to tell you. It's a president showing leadership, listening to people that he takes advice with, that he put in certain roles for that reason and listened. That's a good thing. That's a sign of leadership. And I was giving Trump a lot of crap for those couple of days that he was doing those decisions, but he ultimately came to the right decision, which is what you want. I'm not rooting for him to do the wrong thing. I'm going to root for him to do the right thing, and when he does the right thing, I'm going to give him congratulations for that. I was doing that yesterday, and I think he made the right choice, and I think he's making good choices moving forward. But that doesn't take away from the fact for 5 days we were in a really bad spot, and we were not doing what we needed to do. Those two things can be the same at the same time. We were doing the wrong thing for 5 days. We saw that. We made the decision to pivot to doing the right thing. That's fine. That's learning. That's growth. It's all good. I don't understand why that's a hard thing for people, especially on what I would consider the far right, to accept. Like, it is what it is. Let me calm down from that, and let me let's get to our next story. Where do we want to go here? I want to talk about this real quick, because this is another source of contention with people that are addressing yesterday and the insider trading information thing that's being thrown around. Two things. Number one, Trump made a tweet early in the morning before markets opened and said, "This is a great buying opportunity." People are construing that to mean that he was telling people that they should buy because he was going to make this decision that was going to move the markets. I'm not swayed by that. I think Trump does things like that and says things like that far too often for that to be taken necessarily as him giving you a wink wink that you should buy the market and make lots of money. I think Trump just does things like that no matter what. So that is not an indication of insider trading, in my opinion. I know other people are saying that and thinking that, but I'm not taking that stance. I think that Trump makes far too many similar tweets like that all the time for that to be taken as that, or for that to be something that you could hang your hat on. However, the chart that I have up here is far better proof that someone was engaging in insider trading. 10 minutes before Trump's decision or announcement to pull back the tariffs, somebody put a 10x spy call in, which in a volatile market where things are looking awful is literally lighting money on fire. The only way it's not lighting money on fire is if you know something's about to happen in the next 10 minutes, which this person obviously must have known, because his spy call made a 2,100% return on investment based on the bet that he made at the specifically perfect time where the markets turned at 10 minutes after he made that call. So again, this doesn't mean that Trump had anything to do with that. And I'm not saying that he did. If I'm being honest, I would gather that Trump had nothing to do with it, because the amount of money that was made is inconsequential to the amount of money that Trump is worth. I mean, I don't think Trump himself is doing any sort of insider trading, to be completely clear. What probably most definitely happened is someone that was privy to the information that there was going to be an announcement told someone who made this call. That most definitely 99.9% happened. There's absolutely no way anybody that's trading that has any semblance of sense would make this move, because they didn't make it any time prior in the last 5 days until precisely 10 minutes before the markets made an unprecedented historic move. You're either Jesus Christ himself or the luckiest man on the planet, or you had insider information. So this person had some sort of information, and I'm sure they're going to do an investigation. And I'm not sure if I do have it up. I very, 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 very rarely agree with anything that AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, ever says. Ever. Never agree with her. She's usually so far off. But she made a tweet that I actually agree with. And I think the tweet that she's making is not just pointing the finger at Republicans, it's going to point fingers at Democrats as well, which is also why I agree with this tweet even more. She tweeted, any member of Congress who purchased stocks in the last 48 hours should probably disclose that now. I've been hearing some interesting chatter on the floor. Disclosure deadline is May 15th. We're about to learn a few things. It's time to ban insider trading in Congress. One of the biggest insider traders in Congress is a Democrat. They literally have a tracker on Twitter that you can track her trading, the Nancy Pelosi trading tracker. So I honestly don't think she's just calling out Republicans. I think she's calling out Democrats and Republicans. Because to make that tweet, we have so much data and information. There's literally Excel spreadsheets you can see of every single congressperson and the trades that they make and when they make the trade and what committees they sit on both sides of the aisle, that when making this tweet, she understands that she's not just calling out Republicans, she's calling out Democrats and Republicans. And the fact that she's doing that, and the fact that it's true and you can see the data to back it up, I 100% support that. And I think that any member of Congress that made a trade in the last 48 hours should 100% have to disclose what that trade was. And we should have to be able to see any sort of people tied to any decision-making process that's tied to that person and how they came to be that information to make those trades. Democrat, Republican, I don't care who it is, what side of the aisle they sit on. If you made a trade in the last 48 hours, specifically yesterday, right before the markets turned, you should be up for impeachment. That's an impeachable offense, in my opinion. How do you feel about that, Rich?
I completely agree with that. The problem with all this is that there's no outside agency, truly outside agency, that's going to ever enforce that. So they can have all the rules they want, and that's the annoying part of it. Like they won't ever really truly address it, because if you look at what these people should be worth and what they are worth, it's just ridiculous. It's like, so I totally agree. I think that they should, especially when something like this happens, they should every single elected official, Congress, throughout both houses, everyone, even Supreme Court judges should all be like, these were the trades that this should all be disclosed. It should be an automatic thing too. There should be an outside monitoring system which can follow their shit, which announces it when it happens. It's annoying. Like, and that's the problem. Like, if you're not savvy and you're just following this stuff just kind of as it happens, kind of like you're not really into it, but you're following it enough, it always just looks so bad, and there's no transparency. So I just need to have some kind of transparency. It's just frustrating.
As you were talking, I'm on X, and I hate this because I've been going back and forth with a couple of people that are like hardcore. I don't want to say, I'm not going to say the one guy. I'm gonna give him a shout out, Marty Scoos. I really like Marty. I think Marty's an awesome dude, and we've been going back and forth pretty heavy because he's sitting on one side, I'm sitting on another side, and I don't want to necessarily call him a MAGA guy because I don't think he's necessarily a MAGA guy, but I think he's really supporting all the stuff, and he really doesn't like China. And I want to be clear, I don't like China either. I think China is a terrible country, and I think they do a lot of terrible things, and I think it's coming off like I'm defending China, and I'm not. I'm just telling you how the system works, and I'm just telling you when you do certain things, it has detrimental effects to the system. Two things can be true. China can be a shitty country. China can be screwing us in trade, and all of that could make the system do what it does. And when you interrupt that, it interrupts the system,
right,
which then interrupts everyday life, has detrimental effects on goods and services. And here, I want to make this point real. I feel like you want to say something, but I want to drive this point home really quick. a lot of people are like, I don't have a lot of money in either a 401k or tied to the stock market. And they're like, I don't give a shit about the stock market. Crash the damn thing. What do I care? Right? I understand why people think and say that. Here's the big problem with that. Even though you personally are not tied financially to the stock market has ripple effects with every single industry. So the job that you have has a 6 degree of separation to the stock market. When the stock market crashes, it's going to affect your job in some sort of way, either directly, indirectly, and it's going to cause ripple effects to the people you care about and the things that you do in your everyday life. So you could have zero interest in what the stock market does. It could be up 10%, down 10%, and it doesn't affect your life in any sort of way because you're not allocated to it. But you should damn sure give a shit if the stock market is about to crash and we have bad things happening to that part of the sector of the economy, because it will affect everything. Everything is affected. Main Street and Wall Street are interconnected. People will tell you that they're not, but the people that tell you that they're not do not understand economics.
Right. The economy can be strong.
Shout out to Marty though, real quick, because I just posted something like on his thing too. But I want to give him love because I really like Marty. Okay.
The stock market can be strong, but the rest of the economy could suck. But it kind of doesn't go in reverse. If the stock market's in the toilet, it's very hard for a lot of things that people depend on for it to work. And then in terms of China, like again, I don't think you've ever defended China, but there's this illusion that these tariffs on China are like I saw this all over Twitter, all over Threads yesterday, and it was like, yeah, let's get China because 90% of what they make comes to the United States, which is not even remotely close to being true. I spent a lot of time trying to research this and try to get an accurate answer. It's probably somewhere about 15% of what they make gets exported to the United States. That would be a hit for them, but we get what we're sending to them is less. So the way I view it, it's like they'll ride it. They'll ride it because they can. They have enough other markets that they can sell their stuff to. And a lot of what we need, not a lot, there's enough percentages of what we need that we get from China. Lithium, all the batteries and every single thing that we use, 70% of that lithium comes from China.
You want to know something I learned yesterday that I didn't know? I posted number one, Patrick Bet David. I've talked about the podcast before, which I actually like the podcast, but Patrick Bet David made his money in MLMs. Like it's fact. It's all over the internet. Everybody knows this. Like and I still watch the Patrick Bet David podcast. I actually genuinely like Patrick Bet David, but I think he's slimy as a businessman and he made his money illegally. Two things can be true. I can like the content he produces and think he made money in a sleazy way. Okay. So that's number one. He posted something about the tariffs being great and like basically taking an elitist view of like, we can take the pain and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you can take the pain and other people like you can take the pain, but middle America can't take the pain. And middle America thinks they can, but they can't. And I'm trying to be the voice of reason. So I posted an article by Bill Ackman, who posted something about how, and again, for full context, for up until 2024, Bill Ackman was a hardcore liberal. He gave tens of millions to the Democrat Party. January of 24, something happened with the Biden team, and I don't know the specifics, but he made a complete 180 pivot and denounced the party and was like, I'm going to spend the rest of my money trying to bring the Democrat Party down, and ultimately supported Trump and continues to support Trump. But of course, because he was a liberal forever, everybody's like, why are you listening to? It doesn't matter that he literally gave Trump millions of dollars for his campaign and literally is a big supporter of President Trump. He said yesterday, and he posted something, that you need to reconsider what you're doing in regards to tariffs. And he listed, because he owns interests in many different kind of facets of companies. One of the companies that he owns a facet in has to do with coffee. And he said, I don't think people understand. In the United States of America, we no longer have the ability to make coffee with all the ingredients that are needed in the United States of America. We completely outsource all the coffee from other countries, not just China, Colombia, all these countries that are on that list.
Bananas.
He got a message He got a message from one of his biggest coffee businesses sending Bill a message saying, Bill, I want to give you a heads up that if this goes through with the tariffs, we are not going to be able to survive as a country. The cost that we're going to have to pass on to the consumer is going to make the consumer leave us, and we are going to go bankrupt. I'm just letting you know now, so you don't think I messed this up. He gave him the spreadsheet, and in the tweet, he gave the costs of what everything costs, where it's coming from, and what the new tariff would actually. And here's the thing: that cost is when you go into Starbucks to buy the coffee, you're paying the tariff. Yeah. Because they have to pass that cost on.
And I don't understand why people still think that somehow there's some company somewhere. Most companies are not going to take the hit. Just the fact, because what's going to happen? The people on their board, they're going to fire that guy. So that guy's not going to go up to his stockholders and say, "Hey guys, you're not going to make very much money because I've got to pay." So that's just not going to happen. Second thing is, many CEOs. There's been a lot of posts from people, presidents of companies, not just big companies, small companies in your community that are like, we're going to be out of business. So every 100 jobs here and 200 jobs here and 50 jobs here in every little community is going to be affected. And I just don't, because there are very few things that and maybe 50 years ago, we should have stopped this from happening. But the fact is we're here now, and I don't know how people think, well, if we do this now in 10 years, all the jobs will come back. I don't believe that. and if they did, what are we doing for the next 10 years? And who's going to be able to afford these products that you think that are being made here? I don't know. Maybe I'm not for either party at this moment. Because I just think like we're hurting a lot of real people. And the fact that a lot of these rich people are able to ride this, tells us where we are in this economy anyway.
I made a post early this morning about I don't think President Trump is dangerous the way that many people think he's dangerous, especially the left. I don't think President Trump is dangerous. I think he likes to win, or he likes to give the impression that he won, and he likes to be a showman. And a lot of times his antics are actually amusing to me. What's dangerous, in my opinion, is the MAGA movement. That's become dangerous. And I think that of all the things that the far left did, and they've done a plethora of them that are ridiculous and terrible for this country, one of the worst things, if not the worst things that they did, was birth the MAGA movement. Because the MAGA movement has become the exact mirror image of what the left progressive movement is, of idiocracy and just you can't tell them anything. They've mirrored that with the MAGA movement. Sure. You literally cannot tell anybody on that side anything that goes against something that Trump said in a soundbite. And Trump says soundbites to throw sense off. Like he doesn't say every single thing he believes. He just and I don't understand how people don't get this. And I think it's actually a good quality of Trump. People hit him for this. I don't think it's terrible. You never really know. Even that clip that I gave you, he gave you like little things. Right. You have to like understand logically like what he's saying, but he didn't tell you. He didn't say, "Hey, I was looking at the bond market last night and I said, oh my God, we need to do something. This is crazy." Right. He said, "Hey, I was looking at guys around me are getting queasy, really, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Like,
it's
I love it. I love it. It's a beautiful bond market.
Yeah, and people are like, see, Trump said the bond.
I find that hilarious because like nobody talks that way.
Only Trump's the
only guy. And there is the aspect of it. I compare any extreme, whether it's the Republicans, the MAGA movement, or the very, very, very far left. You know what? It's funny because the left is interesting to me because there are weird types of the left. There's the really, really, really extreme left, and they're not really liberals. In the sense that they're not the same thing, and I think the
progressive. They call that progressive, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are the people that are Democrats that are liberals, and they're what I would call shit libs. Like they just do whatever the liberals say, whatever the Democratic Party says. Like that, Kamala Harris is going to be the best president ever.
Which is what MAGA does for Trump.
You're right.
Yeah.
And the difference is, the funny thing about it is, there are people that are very far left of the liberals. And so they're kind of their own problem. And that is kind of the split, which I think screwed up the Democrats, because they've got this own version of things, and they do the same thing. No matter what Trump does, it's the worst thing ever. And they're no different than sports teams. They're like the Bills fan that no matter what they do, it was the greatest move ever. It was the greatest thing ever. They defend every single bad game in playoff loss, no matter what.
Markets are moving as we're speaking, by the way.
Well, which way?
Wrong,
I
wrong,
do have 401.
Wrong direction.
I have 403B.
As we've been speaking, Bitcoin is down to 79,300. So Bitcoin has lost about $2,000 in the span of what have we been filming for 30 minutes. Ethereum is touching 1,500. The stock market, we got the Dow down to 3.25%, the S&P down almost 4%, and the Nasdaq is down 4.5%. So in a typical, to put this all in the context for the traditional markets, 3, 4, and 4.5 are enormous moves.
Yes.
And I wanna be very clear again.
Because on a regular day, it's like what, 0.3?
I want to be very clear again. The MAGA people overnight were posting about how everything, where are all the people today talking about markets? Markets are back, and I'm like, that's one day. And I had to post because somebody posted something this morning that markets, and I'm like, we're actually back in correction territory again. And another day like this tomorrow, we're in a bear market considered again, back in bear market territory.
And this is the stuff that I think that this administration doesn't understand. They say things, and it causes these debacles, like these weird things. This is going to happen. This is going to happen, and the market reacts. And then the China, and the thing is Our market's open for how many hours? What's the American market open for? 12 hours?
9:30 to 4.
So it's but the thing is, people you realize there's other markets, right? You realize that. I'm being facetious. The people out there, you were posting something the other day about the China market. It's you realize there's other markets.
Yeah, I was watching. I was up late.
Market.
I was up late watching that market, and I was real time posting about it, and people had no idea what I was talking about.
So it doesn't matter what happens within our 8-hour time frame. Because as soon as our market, there's another market opening, or
there's markets overlapping.
Market.
Yeah,
there's markets open all the time, and they're reacting no matter what. Sometimes that sucks because somebody will say something at 10 o'clock at night.
Our market closes at 4, and I think the Asian markets open depending on the time of the year. I think it's because with the time changes and shit. I think it's 7 or 8.
12 hours literally off.
7 or 8. Yeah. 7 or 8 p.m. is when their market's open.
My friend worked in China, and he was at 9 o'clock when I was at 9 o'clock, just opposite 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a 12-hour difference in
European markets. Yeah. The European markets, 6
hours ahead of us.
So I mean, there's always something going on, and
so that's the problem. If somebody posts something at 11 o'clock, and you're depending on the American market to react to it, there's only so much you can do because a lot of it's not going to really hit until 9 in the morning. So, I mean, that's the problem, with a lot of this stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, these are wild economic times. And in the middle of all this, let's put this up real quick. In the middle of all this, and again, people don't realize these are lagging indicators. This doesn't mean that this is happening in the current moment. U.S. inflation falls to 2.4%, lower than expected. That's actually higher because the truflation, there's a good account on X, and I saw some MAGA people posting it, and it's good information. There's a organization called Truflation that tracks true inflation, and they have it at 1.4 or 1.6. It's gotten, and that's year over year, that's gotten lower. They've definitely gotten inflation down. So the problem is, again, tariffs are inflationary. So when these tariffs start going into operation, especially the ones with China, the main one, you're going to feel the effects of goods and services prices rising. Because again, when you're charging China a tariff of X amount of percent, that means that the person or business or organization that's buying it has to buy it at a higher number. When they buy it at a higher number, they have to pass on that higher number to the consumer. When they pass on the higher number to the consumer, then that price of that good and service rises, which means inflation rises. Now, the debate part of it is it transitory, which means it's not going to last long, which they said in 2022, which was they were wrong about with the COVID one, or is it going to be something much more longer lasting like it was with COVID? That's the only debate. There isn't a debate if tariffs are transitory or not. Are inflationary or not. They are. It's just how long does that inflation last? Is it momentarily inflation, or is it inflation that's going to persist? Now that's the hardest job right now, I think, in the world, honestly. And I don't like the guy. I'm not a fan, so I don't feel sorry for him. But the hardest job in the world right now is Jerome Powell at the Fed. The fact that he went those 5 days and didn't do anything, I mean, he had to. There's a couple things at play. Like Powell hates Trump. Trump hates Powell. Like that's known. You just know that, right? So there's egos. When you ascend to power, like obviously the president has to have an ego. Every single one has to have an ego. But so does Powell. Powell's got an ego as well. So do you want to be the one that buckles to the other, or do you want to see the other one buckle? So in the eyes of Powell versus Trump, right? Again, people are going to be offended, but Trump buckled to Powell because he was planning to have Powell and the Fed have an emergency Fed meeting and lower rates before their May meeting. That's what he was trying to do with the 10-year. It didn't work. The 10-year was going in the other direction. It was actually getting bids on what's today? Thursday. So Tuesday night, it was getting bids, which was setting it higher, which is part of the reason why he did what he said, that he was watching the markets and people were getting queasy, and part of why he pivoted yesterday. But Powell wasn't giving any indication that he was going to lower anything. And now today, when you get this data that inflation falls under 2%, 2.4%, normally that would be good information for him to be lowering rates. The problem is he's not going to be lowering it fast enough. He'll probably wait till May. But in the meantime, all this tariff stuff is going to cause inflation to go back in the other direction. When inflation goes up, you're not going to be lowering rates. So he's handcuffing Powell into doing what he wants him to do, which is just crazy. And people that don't understand markets are just like, you're getting excited about hammering all these tariffs and stuff, and it's like your timing is like, why are you doing this right now? And I get part of it is because he's got midterms to worry about, and he's got to make sure he gives himself enough time for all that. But your goal, your end goal, is deficit spending. That's what he keeps saying. He's using deficit spending as his excuse. That's why he's attacking China and tariffs, because he wants to bring down the trade deficit. But if you really care about deficit spending, you should care about the interest payment that you're going to make on that deficit, which is directly tied to interest rates, and you're doing things that are messing with that. So now you're giving Powell the excuse not to do anything, because now Powell may think in May, you got a 90-day pause. I'm going to wait and see what happens with the tariffs. So we're not going to lower rates.
I was noticing that he was posting this stuff about the Fed, and it was funny because like the Fed doesn't post, so he's just sitting back in his office and just not doing much of anything, and that's frustrating, I think, for a lot of us, because like there isn't. I mean, I don't pretend to understand much of the Fed. I don't think I pretend to understand it at all. But at the same time, it's like I feel like other chairmen have managed it better. Like, just to seem like there's more information. It seems to match the market more. Rates are adjusted from time to time. Like, it just seems like this guy doesn't do much.
In 2008, when they had the crisis, the global financial crisis, Ben Bernanke was the Fed chair, and he was in the White House frequently. They even had, because if you remember, everything happened right, like people kind of forget history. All of that was occurring right during election season.
Oh yeah, it was like a few. I mean, the worst.
They
part
had
was what, like 15 days, something.
They
like that.
they had
Election.
both McCain and Powell in on meetings because they wanted to make sure that whoever won the election was ready to hit the floor running. Right. So Bush, Bernanke, McCain, and Obama, which I think in retrospect, may have had something to do with why that is our last election that was actually a cordial one, because I think they were spending so much time in the same room together, like really being like, all right, whoever wins is going to be really responsible for like a lot of crazy shit. So let's make sure each of us is ready for that because we're both Americans and we want the country to succeed. That's a whole nother conversation. But Bernanke, like I said, to drive the point home, Bernanke was in the White House collaborating in a time of crisis. There wasn't even a rumbling or a mention of, hey, why don't we bring Powell into the White House while these markets are going all over the place and things are going crazy to have a conversation.
It was around a lot during Biden's administration. I don't feel like there was very much communication like at that level to try to lower interest rates. Like Biden would talk about it once in a while. But then nothing ever seemed to happen.
It really, and the Fed is supposed to be fair, the Fed is supposed to be nonpartisan, so it's not supposed to be a partisan entity. It's not supposed to be Republican or Democrat, which is a big reason why they don't typically collaborate. But when you're having a crisis, which I would call the last 5 days, like we were having an economic crisis, like the markets were telling us so. In the bond markets were telling us so, and we were playing with fire, and there was no mention of any. I mean, here's the thing that Trump hates. I can tell you this with complete certainty. The only part of all this that he has absolutely no control over is the Federal Reserve's ability to raise rates, lower rates, and set monetary policy. Right. He has no control over that. He can fire Powell and put somebody else in, but he's got to put somebody else in that's from inside the Fed. Because you can't put some idiot in there that doesn't know anything about the Fed.
He can't pick his buddy.
You got to take one of those other Fed.
You can't pick somebody from Fox.
You got to take one of those other 12 governors of the Fed and implement them, which they're all in the same room with Powell and all think and feel the same. So you're going to get basically the same thing.
For sure.
So he can't really, and it's by design. That's by design. So you can't have a partisan influence into the Fed. So that irks Trump for sure, which is why he spent a lot of his first term verbally assaulting Powell and telling him what he thinks he should or shouldn't do, and why he took, and again, as somebody who studies markets and understands these things, the only thing that made any sort of sense of why he did this was he was trying to force Powell's hand to lower rates faster than he wanted to by manipulating the bond market. But the problem is, if I can see that, and I'm a nobody, if I know that and see that he's doing that, much smarter economists and people in other countries can see that, and they defended against it. And you had these other Asian countries, rumors are it was China or Japan, selling off their treasuries, which made the bond prices rise. So when the bond prices rise, he's not getting what he wants, and he realizes that's not going to happen. So now you're destroying markets for absolutely no reason. So now you have to acquiesce. So now we're in this place that he's going hard with China with the tariffs and all that stuff's going on, and China's playing hardball, we're playing hardball, and that's going to have, I mean, the NASDAQ is over 5% now. It's down even lower. Everything continues to fall. I mean, you basically gave back.
You know, when it comes down to it, I mean,
they basically gave back. As of right now, we've given back over half of what we gained yesterday.
Say that again one more time.
As of right now, we've given back half of what we gained yesterday.
Right. And we were already down. So if you're looking at it from Inauguration Day, if you're looking at it from those whatever number.
From Inauguration Day, I can give you those stats. You want to know where we're at year to date?
Because I think that's what. You know, it's funny because sometimes presidents come in their first 100 days, it's really not very creative and very little happens. To Tom's credit, he said he was going to do a lot in the first 100 days, and he's doing a lot in the first 100 days. He's making moves. So based on what he said he was going to do, where are we since Inauguration Day? I think I know the answer to this, but I'm wondering, since you can look it up.
The S&P 500, and I'll give you year-to-date stats because that's what it's going to give me. So year-to-date is basically a little bit before he took office. Right. Now, this is market open. This is not taking into consideration what's happening right now. So right now, the S&P is down 4%.
since the beginning of the year.
No. Since the beginning of the year, the S&P is down 4% today. Before that, it was down 11.
Right.
So it's down 15% right now. That's the S&P. The Dow Jones, as of right now, it's down 3.37. Year to date, 7.77%. So we're down over 10 since the beginning of the year. As of right now, taking into consideration what the market is doing at the present moment at noon Eastern Standard Time. And the NASDAQ, which is performing the worst, it's down 5% as of right now. The NASDAQ is in correction territory. It's down 15.75% since the beginning of the year. So the NASDAQ is in bear market territory. Everything else is in correction territory. The NASDAQ, which is tied to tech stocks, is in a bear market since the beginning of the year. We've lost 20% of its value basically since Trump has been either the president-elect and president. We're down 20%. So you can say he's got a great plan. He's got an art of the deal thing going on, that this is all by, okay, all right, that's fair. But what you can't say is he's not taking a risk that it goes bad and we just blew up the markets.
You could subscribe to the theory that given his philosophy and a lot of his folks, the people in his room with him feel that we have to do this. We have to hit this, we got to take this punch in the face so that we can reset the way we do things to make it better. And there are those growing pains. Like, I can accept that. I just don't think I quite understand. I don't think I really truly understand what the long-term goal is and if it's going to benefit everybody in the country.
He campaigned on fixing the debt, which is impossible. Can't do it.
And none of this is
going
to fix the debt.
Nope. Fixing the trade deficit, which is also impossible. So he sold to his base that there's a trade deficit and that sucks. True. We are in debt a lot and that sucks. True. But he sold to his base that there's something that we can do about it that doesn't involve absolutely destroying markets. False. Can't do that. If I was thinking about this before I came into the podcast today, and even throwing this out there, because I just don't think enough people are going to really, number one, understand, or number two, give it any credence when I say it. If President Trump, or anybody associated with President Trump, is truly, genuinely interested in eliminating our debt, or at least significantly reducing it, and reducing trade deficits, there's only one thing that will do both of those two things, and that is giving up the currency world reserve status of the United States and then deciding to back that currency simultaneously with a hard asset. Basically saying to the rest of the world, the United States is no longer going, this is America first. This is truly America first. Okay? Telling the rest of the world we are no longer going to come and save everybody and be exporting our dollars and have to have our nose in everything that's going on. We are going to take the world reserve currency status away. You can use the pound, the sterling, the EU, whatever shit currency you want to be the world reserve currency. Settle trade in that. We are no longer interested in that. The dollar is now going to be backed by gold, backed by Bitcoin, whatever you want to back it with a hard asset. We are no longer going to print money to infinity, and we are going to be serious about getting our debt down to something manageable. And guess what? Trade deficits no longer going to be a thing because we don't need the trade deficit anymore because we no longer have the world reserve currency. So F you to everybody. It's America first. It's all about us. I don't give a shit about the rest of the world. Right. That's what it takes. And there isn't a person in politics that will do that.
What's ironic about that is when earlier I mentioned the really far left that's not Democrat liberals, like the shit libs. That's what they want. They want the end of U.S. hegemony. They don't want America's dollar to be used in that way. They want essentially like what they want.
More libertarian than far left.
Right, but what they want, but it's not, they don't want America to be not just the America, like the world's bank, so to speak, because we use our dollar. They also don't want us to be America's, like, spending all this money, like, they want to spend money on the things they think are important, not on, like, I'm going to say it, Israel and some of these other things that we do that our military does, like that large military presence all over the world, and not doing the thing. Like it's very, again, they're really liberal. They don't want to spend all the money on F-35s and all that other crap. So it's kind of funny because in strange ways, a lot of what says he's going to do is kind of like what they want to see, but not for good reasons. They want that, and they want the American dollar to kind of collapse, to kind of reset the system.
I want to end on this one final point too. I got a chart up. You can put this up because this is going to be important for what I'm going to talk about. Trump met with Netanyahu earlier this week. Netanyahu was in the Oval Office and they were conversating. Trump said again, this is not me saying this, and people were fact checking me, and I was literally sending them the video with his own words saying this. So you can look it up. I'm not going to put the video up. Do your own research and find it. Trump made a statement saying that we are talking about increasing the national spending for the military for the first time in history to $1 trillion. He said that. I'm not speculating that. He said those exact words. I might be paraphrasing slightly, but he said because national defense is extremely important for this country, which I don't disagree with, but he said we are going to increase the national spending to $1 trillion. Like it's a great thing, like $1 trillion, like Austin Powers, for the first time in history. I want you to realize that last year, 2024 spending for the national defense was $840 billion. Moving it up to $1 trillion is a $160 billion increase. Okay? You're following the math so far? Yep. Doge has been completely transparent with the savings that they had. I'm on the website of their transparency, which I love. I love the fact that they're transparent. But I want people to realize when they say Doge is saving all this money, bringing the deficit down. Number one, our deficit is crossed $36.7 trillion. It's continuing to go up. Okay, that's number one. Number two, the amount of savings that Doge has found so far is $150 billion. Trump this week just said he wants to increase just the spending on our national defense, $160 billion, which would be $10 billion more than they quote unquote saving American taxpayers. So they're going to take that savings and they're going to put it into another spot. Which, okay, you found some money somewhere else that didn't need to be going somewhere and you're putting in national defense. I'm not going to say that's terrible. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing. What I'm saying is all the people throwing it in your face saying Doge is going to save all this money and Doge is going to give us which I argued with people literally a month ago saying nobody's getting $5,000 checks. That's not going to be a thing. They're not sending you money. They're not finding savings. They're reallocating money. That's all that they're doing because they already spent it. They're reallocating it for the 2025 year, which is what they're about to do. He just found $150 billion. He's going to allocate it to national defense, which means they're going to continue to spend. There's no such thing as reducing the deficit in a dollar homogeny. There's no such thing as trade surpluses in a world reserve currency debt-based dollar homogeny. You're being sold bullshit. Straight up. And all the MAGA people that are spouting this economic nonsense with no understanding of how things actually truly work, and you hear your fearless leader say something, and then you spit it like it's fact, when half the time the things that he says is just things to say to throw off the scent. He doesn't even mean half the things that he says, which is part of that by design. But you guys hang on every word that he says, and you believe everything that somebody from the far right that's in the MAGA movement says, that you completely discount history, you completely discount how economics work. You don't understand the debt-based dollar system that you operate in. And as a person that works in traditional finance and meets with clients on a daily basis, I can say that firsthand. Many people do not. So when all of a sudden you guys become tariff experts and all of a sudden you guys become economic experts, and then you say the same thing about us, People like me, I take offense to it. Every other dumbass that doesn't understand economics, that might be a liberal or might be a Republican rhino, whatever you want to call it, you might be right about them. But when you come for somebody like me and you say those things, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, because I will continue to show you facts. I will continue to show you economic history, and you can say all the nonsense and bullshit that you want. It's just not true. No matter how much you say it, no matter how much you tweet it, no matter how much you post it, doesn't make it any more less true. So either learn and understand, see what's happening, or shut the hell up. Because things are going to play themselves out the way they're going to play themselves out. We're going to continue to have deficits. We're probably going to reach 40 trillion sometime in the next 2 years in the national deficit. It's not going to go the other way. We'll probably negotiate something with China. It's probably going to be a little bit better than it is now. We'll still have a deficit with them, as well as the rest of the world, because that's how the dollar system works. It's flawed. We know this, but we want this because we refuse to give up the world reserve currency status. It's all by design. And we don't have one person that has any semblance of power that's saying, hey, let's give up the dollar status as world reserve currency. Let's back it with something hard, and let's tell the rest of the world that we are truly America first, because that would be America first. Everything else is rhetoric. Everything else is not America first. Everything else is protect the dollar at all costs. Protect the world reserve currency status at all costs. That's what all this is. This is not America first. No matter what anybody tries to tell you, there's only one way and one route to that, and nobody has the balls to do it. Thanks for watching. As always, especially now in these times that we're living in, don't trust, verify. Deuces.